The harvesting chair was in the medical wing, a place Arthur had only seen on orientation videos. It looked like a dentist's chair from a nightmare. Smooth white surfaces, articulated arms holding sensor arrays. He had stolen an empty cartridge and the access codes from a careless technician. His plan was simple. He would sit in the chair. He would use the machine not to capture a memory, but to forge one. He would focus every ounce of his fear, his rage, his disgust at the Institute and the tenant, into a single, concentrated psychic event. A memory of being consumed. Of being erased. A scream etched into crystal. He sat in the chair. The room was cold. He initiated the sequence. The machine hummed, a sound that vibrated in his teeth. He closed his eyes. He did not think of a specific event. He summoned the feeling. The figure in the Christmas memory, watching. The shadow in the lake, moving. The empty eyes of Mrs. Edgemont. The parasitic waveform, pulsing, feeding. He combined them. He amplified them. He imagined the feeling as a physical thing. A cold, thick oil flooding his mind, pushing out everything he was. He gave it a shape. The absence. A thing made of hungry silence. He poured every glitch, every crack in reality, into its form. He was not remembering. He was creating a nightmare from whole cloth. The machine whined. Lights flickered. The cartridge in the slot began to glow, not with a warm amber, but with a sickly, bruise-like purple. It was working. He was imprinting pure, undiluted terror. The emotion was so intense it felt like his skull might split. He held on. He pushed more. He thought of his own gray, empty past. Was that why he was susceptible? Because there was less of him to get in the way. The thought brought a new, deeper wave of despair. He fed that too into the crystal. With a final, shuddering click, the process completed. The machine powered down. Arthur slumped, drenched in cold sweat, nauseous. The cartridge was warm to the touch. It throbbed with a malevolent energy. He had his poison. Elias was waiting for him outside the medical wing. He was not alone. Two large, quiet men in Institute security uniforms stood with him. Arthur's heart sank. Of course. The unauthorized access had triggered alarms. Arthur, Elias said, sounding genuinely disappointed. The forging of an unsanctioned memory. And such a violent emotional signature. You've become a contaminant. The tenant is agitated. It can taste your fear from here. It wants it. We have to deliver you. To calm it. This was not part of the plan. He was supposed to get to his booth. To broadcast the poisoned memory into the main network, to let the tenant draw it in from all the active sessions at once. To choke it at the source. He clutched the corrupted cartridge in his pocket. He had one chance. He looked at Elias, and then past him, down the sterile hallway. He saw a glitch. A flicker in the lighting. A dark smear on the wall that moved. The tenant was close. Drawn by the intensity of what he had created. It's not just my fear it wants, Arthur said, his voice surprisingly steady. I made something for it. A gift. It's in here. He held up the cartridge. The purple glow pulsed through his fingers. Elias's eyes widened. He understood. That's a catastrophic thought. You'll destabilize the entire network. You'll hurt the clients. I'll hurt it, Arthur corrected. Let me into my booth. Let me give it this one memory. Or I'll break the cartridge right here. And we'll see what a concentrated dose of raw terror does to it when it's this close. Maybe it likes it. Maybe it chokes. Do you want to find out? It was a standoff. Elias hesitated, calculating. The dark smear on the wall grew larger, more defined. The air grew colder. The tenant was making the choice for them. It wanted the concentrated meal Arthur was offering. The hunger was overriding its symbiosis with the Institute. The booth, Elias whispered, fear finally touching his own eyes. Now. They moved down the hallway, a strange procession. The security men flanked Arthur, not to restrain him, but to protect him, to ensure the delivery reached its destination. The darkness followed, flowing along the ceiling like inverted smoke. Arthur reached his booth. He sealed the door behind him, locking them all out. He could see Elias's anxious face through the soundproof glass. He inserted the poison cartridge into the master console. He didn't hook it to any client. He routed it directly into the Institute's core emotional feed. The main artery that supplied the tenant. He took a deep breath. And he hit play. It was not a scene that erupted on the monitors. It was a wave. A tsunami of pure, abstract dread. The screens went black, then filled with chaotic, impossible geometry that hurt to look at. The sound that came through the speakers was not a scream, but the concept of screaming. The console's haptic pads vibrated with the frequency of utter despair. Arthur was buffeted by it, even though he had created it. It was worse than he imagined. In the hallway, the lights died. The dark smoke coalesced. It poured into the booth, not through the door, but through the very air, materializing around the console. It was formless, yet densely present. It was the absence. It was drawn to the poisoned memory like a shark to blood. It began to feed. To consume the broadcast terror. For a moment, nothing happened. The entity feasted. The purple glow from the cartridge intensified. Arthur felt a pulling sensation, not at his body, but at his mind. The tenant was taking the memory, and with it, it was taking the part of Arthur that had forged it. His fear, his anger, his plan. It was drinking him. Then, the reaction. The entity convulsed. The formless darkness writhed. The chaotic images on the screen stuttered, reversed, fragmented. The sound shifted from conceptual scream to a sharp, painful static, then to a deep, rattling cough. A sound of existential indigestion. The tenant was not designed for this. It processed joy, nostalgia, warmth. This was antimatter to its being. The poison was working. The darkness began to fray at the edges. To dissipate. To retreat. But as it retreated, it did not let go. In its distress, it clung to the nearest source of coherence. To the memory of the one who had poisoned it. To Arthur. Not to his fear, but to him. To his quiet, gray, empty past. The very emptiness he had feared was his weakness became a vacuum. And the wounded, choking tenant, in its need for stability, rushed to fill it. Arthur's vision went white. Not with light, but with absence. He felt not an invasion, but an integration. The entity, damaged, disoriented, was not attacking. It was seeking shelter. And the hollow places inside Arthur Vale were the perfect refuge. The lights in the Institute came back on. The console screens returned to their peaceful, green idle state. The corrupted cartridge was empty, a dark, dead crystal. Elias and the security men found Arthur slumped in his chair. He was alive. Breathing. His eyes were open. They were calm. Empty in a new way. Not like Mrs. Edgemont's drained vacancy. But like the quiet after a storm. A deep, settled silence. He recovered. Physically. He even returned to work for a short time. But he was different. He no longer saw glitches. The world was stable, solid, almost unbearably real. He felt no fear. No joy. No nostalgia. The gray country of his past was still there, but it was no longer empty. It was occupied by a quiet, sleeping presence. The absence, wounded, poisoned, had anchored itself to the only thing that could withstand its toxic meal: his own profound neutrality. It was dormant, contained within him. He left the institute. They let him go. He was no longer a threat. He was something else. A custodian of a different kind. Arthur Vale now lives in a small, quiet apartment. He does not dream. He does not look back. The past, for him, is not a place of memory. It is a tenant. And he is the manager of the silence it requires to heal. Or to sleep. He is not sure which. Sometimes, in the dead of night, he will feel a faint stir. Not a thought. A flavor. A distant echo of someone else's happiness, filtering through from a world he is no longer part of. It tastes like nothing. Like static. And in the heart of that static, he feels the presence within him shift slightly. A reflex. A ghost of hunger. Quickly soothed by the vast, quiet emptiness that surrounds it. He has not opened a door. He has become the door. And the thing on the other side is locked in with him. In a perfect, silent, mutual containment. He keeps the empty, purple-black cartridge on his bedside table. A paperweight. A reminder. Not of the battle, but of the bargain. He gave the monster a memory it couldn't forget. And in return, it gave him a silence he can never break. The night is quiet now. Both inside and out. And Arthur Vale, the night manager, finally has a shift that never ends.